This one. All right, we are back at Pittsburgh Soccer Now. This is Kids on the Pitch podcast. This is part two. We are starting part two with and talking about the girls' side of things. And of course, with me, this is John Krysinsky, Pittsburgh Soccer Now, is Matt Popchock. We're done talking about the boys. We've got the girls on, and who better to bring on is OLSH, Our Lady of Sacred Heart head coach Paige Petroval. Paige has been a past guest on our show, and the girls single A it's wide open, I think, this year, and very exciting. And I think that why not OLSH this year, right, Paige? Why not?
Oh, right. I think single A soccer has come such a long way over the years, even since I've been with OLSH. I've been there for like 5 years now. And this year especially, I mean, there's just been shockers all throughout. I think all 4 sections. So I think it's really open for anyone that's ready to, step up and work hard and take over. I think everyone stands a pretty good chance. So it's going to be really exciting.
Well, Paige, John,
go ahead.
Sorry, John. John just asked why not OLSH, and I would like to answer his question. Defense. Defense wins championships. That's how the cliche goes, right? Your team has played very good team defense this year. Statistically, the second best scoring defense in the whole classification. Why is that? What makes your defense so good? What has made it so tough this year?
I think not even just pointing out our whole defense, but we've really been stressing communication this year as a whole entire unit of 11 girls on the field. So I think our back line, we've really been like shoving it down their throats. Like, I need you guys to talk to each other. I need you guys to communicate. We've had injuries and we've had girls step up and play in positions that they might not be their, first pick or their most comfortable spot. But with that communication, I think they've been able to hold off teams very well. We haven't allowed too many points this season. I don't know the exact numbers, but just them kind of working together as one whole unit and being patient in the defending. So we've kind of been stressing the defensive aspect because, scoring, obviously you want to focus on as well, but I think that comes more naturally to my girls, at least in the attack. It's more of being patient on that defensive end. So it's kind of just been a main goal and main focus for us as a team.
And Paige, I'm looking at you've again this year you played Freedom out of section this time, and you beat them earlier in the season. And they were a team that I was touting. I kind of had them in my projection as the top seed, but and they won the WPIAL last year. I mean, what in terms of those top teams in the bracket? You obviously played Winchester Thurston. And Freedom, but Riverview gets the number 1 seed, which obviously we all know about Lola Abraham, and she's a fantastic talent. But they're really coming together as a program as well. And that section that they're in, with Springdale and Greensburg Central Catholic, I'm sure I felt like the committee this year really rewarded teams, those sections, like the really tough sections. They didn't care in terms of the boys and the girls and all these classifications. It seemed like they just went ahead and said, we're gonna seed in the top 4 who we think are the best teams. But anyway, what are your thoughts in terms of like Freedom and where they kind of got pushed down? I was surprised by that ranking.
Yeah, I was surprised too. I do know that section 1 is super strong this year. Riverview's having a great season. GCC, Springdale. We did get to, play Springdale, Winchester Thurston, and Freedom all in the regular season. So we've seen 3 of those top 6 teams, which is something we try to do every year just so we get a better picture at playoffs. But I mean, I think the committee, when they were, organizing and pairing the playoff bracket, I think what you said is exactly right. They took teams that performed well and had a tougher schedule. I mean, Springdale got seeded, I think it was 1 above us, which, I mean, well deserved. We play them in the regular season and they beat us. So, it doesn't matter just what your section looks like. It's kind of more of an overall picture, which I think is great. I was kind of surprised that Freedom got bumped out of that first spot too. Not surprised, like, saying anything poorly about any other team, but Freedom's just been a powerhouse these past couple seasons. And we did see them earlier in the season, and now I see we're in that top upper corner with them. So if things go our way, we could see them in, just a week or two here. And I know that they're pretty fired up because our game against them was something against the weather. Basically, it got, kind of fogged out in the second half of the game. So we didn't get to play a full 80 minutes. And I know that probably riled them up for the rest of the season, and it riled us up for the rest of the season. So a rematch would be really, really cool. But I do like how the seeding came out, and I think it's going to create some really good matchups and really bring those top two teams to Highmark at the end of these next 2 weeks.
But
And
you have some real quality wins, and yet they put you in the 17. It just shows how the fine line of being kind of in that second tier, second seeding group in the top 4.
Oh yeah. I mean, not winning the section definitely takes a big hit on your seeding. And I think that we kind of see it every year. We try to play these tougher out of section games to get us ready for playoffs, and maybe that hurts the seeding whenever you're looking ahead. But I mean, overall, the tougher teams you play, the more prepared you are whenever you hit postseason. So, I think it's easy to say that you feel like you get gypped out of a playoff seeding that you may want, but realistically, I mean, it could have gone in those 5, 6, 7, 8 spots. I think it really could have been switched up any which way, and it would be deemed fair or, appropriate. So I think it just comes down to, what the committee decides is best, and we just have to roll with it and take the seed that we're given. We've been in this spot before where we've had a really tough path to get to the WPIAL finals a couple of years ago. And I think that's just more motivation for not just our team, but every team. If you're given a tough path, you want to prove everybody wrong. And like us, I know you want to seed us 7. Okay, well, let us show you that we deserved better than that. So I think we can use that as motivation.
Matt?
Yeah, I was just going to say earlier, Coach, looking at matchups and looking at the bracket in the interest of, for your sake, not putting the cart before the horse, Waynesburg Central. Let's look at round 1, game 1, Waynesburg Central, Tuesday evening, the 24th, 6 p.m. first touch. Can you give us an impromptu scouting report of your first round opponent and what you're going to tell your team as you prepare for that first round game?
So I do think it's important to scout the other team, but I like to more reflect on what we're doing and focus on our game. So whenever I go into these postseason matches, or really just any match in the regular season, I focus on us playing our game and what we need to do to be at our very best. Because I think if the girls play up to their potential, then we control the game and we control the narrative of what's about to happen. So we've been focusing on, like I said, communication all season. We've been focusing on patient 1v1 defending, and we've been focusing on keeping the ball on the ground and playing short, simple passes throughout the game. If the girls play at that speed of play that they're capable of, and they play together as 11 girls on one team and one unit rather than 11 individuals scattered around the pitch, then I think that it doesn't really matter what the other team does. I mean, obviously it matters, but our focus should be on ourselves. And that's just kind of the way I like to frame it, because, if you look too much into another team, I think it starts to become like a mental game and like a mindset type thing. And at least for my group of girls, their mindset needs to be focusing on themselves and being at their best. So that's kind of how we go into all of these different rounds and games against opponents that are tough, because we've seen a lot of tough teams this season. So just focusing on ourselves is the route that we're going to take.
And one of the things that John and I have been talking about throughout the podcast today, as we look at the different brackets, and as we look in particular at the teams that we think have the potential to do well, you guys were WPIAL runners-up in 2020. The pandemic year, challenging year for multiple reasons, but it ended up with a really good showing by you guys getting that silver medal in the WPIAL tournament. A lot of these teams that did really well, 2020 around that time, the freshmen on those teams are now the seniors, the leaders of the teams that are going into this year's playoffs. Is that something that you guys maybe have going for you? Because we've seen it in other playoff brackets. All it takes sometimes is that group of really experienced, tight-knit, smart, seasoned seniors to come together in the exact right place and the exact right time and catch lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly what happened for us that 2020 season. That group of seniors was really close. They had one goal, and that was to win and not be able to be stopped. And I mean, they made it very far, the farthest we've gotten in school history, to a WPIAL championship game. And I think that these girls that were freshmen that year, they're seniors this year, and they've tasted it. And now they want it back before their time is up. So I think they all have one goal in mind too. They've been working super, super hard all season to improve on the little things to get us ready for this exact, time and this exact moment. So I think because they got the taste of it, and we had freshmen that year that were getting significant playing time. I mean, Alexa Taylor was one of our leading scorers that year as a freshman, and now she's back her senior year. She's a 3-year captain. She's ready to just put the pedal to the metal along with everybody else. I mean, we have Daria Sharon, who was getting a lot of time her freshman year. Faith Gartley has stepped up as a goalkeeper following, the graduation of that 2020 goalkeeper, Bella. So I think all of these girls have been building a really strong foundation over the past 3 to 4 years, and now they're just ready to go. And the younger girls that have come up, they see that passion in them and they want to match it. So, I don't think if you looked at the field and knew what year each player was or what each class they were, I don't think you'd be able to tell a freshman or a sophomore from a junior or a senior. I mean, they all play at such a high intensity and they all want it just as badly as one another. I think that plays a big role in why we've had a pretty successful season thus far, and why I hope that we continue that on as these playoffs roll out.
Well, Paige, I really appreciate you joining us. This is it's always good to have you on, and I really think that in single A, I think there's a lot of teams. There's a lot of teams that could really threaten and make a run. There's no dominant team in at the top. For years it was Greensburg Central and Shadyside Academy, and the last few years, really since the year your group came up and really made the challenge, as Matt mentioned, in 2020. I think it's just been fun every year. So I'm sure the other thing is, 2020 you had to play at high school stadiums even into the final. So the goal of getting to Highmark Stadium, I'm sure that's something that everyone's excited about.
Absolutely. They want to get to Highmark, and in the year 2020, since it was COVID, they took less teams to the PIAA playoffs. So even though we made the WPIAL finals, we didn't get that opportunity to play in the state playoffs. And I know that they're hungry for that as well. So, I mean, there's a lot for all the teams to look forward. And like you said, I think it's just going to be super exciting because there's not one clear front runner. I think it just depends on the day and how the team steps out on the field. Everyone's so talented that it's going to just be really, really fun to watch and be a part of. So I know we're excited. And I'm sure all the other teams are excited as well.
All right. Well, Paige, thank you for joining us, and we'll be watching you and following you, and maybe even be out at one of the 2 of the games as the playoffs progress. And good luck the rest of the way.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Coach.
Yeah. Bye.
Okay.
All right, we're back. We have Ed Rosensteel with us. Ed, this year, you've been coached Ringgold. You guys came up just a little short, I guess, as far as the playoffs go. But we really always appreciate your knowledge and insight of girls high school soccer in our region. Of course, you're very, very involved in all aspects of girls soccer, high school soccer, because of Mo Rosensteel Foundation and all the good work that you're doing with that as well. And of course, taking a look at all those top players in our area who would be eligible for the Rosensteel Award at the end of the season. And there's been some really great individual performances, but you also host what is it, at the beginning of the season, kind of like an early season 1-day event at Norwin High School. So, but Ed, it's great to have you back on the podcast. Great to have you back. I know you've contributed to Pittsburgh soccer now over the years too. So we're glad to talk to you. We wish you could still be coaching in the playoffs, but we're glad to have you with us.
As do I, and at least 26 girls. So, but thanks for having me. Always enjoy talking, John.
So Ed, here we are, 3A. I really wanted to talk to you about 3A girls. I thought last year was obviously one of the most fascinating fields. It came down, of course, to everyone wanted to see Moon versus Mars, and we got that. We got it twice. You know, but I think 3A this year, it's a lot more wide open, especially just a lot more wide open. And I think some of it has to do with Moon's section alone, because they've got South Fayette has emerged and Montour has emerged. And I think that's been fascinating. And of course, your section, but you know, there's some teams that Bell Vernons and Ringgolds that usually get in there, and it was very competitive. So what are your thoughts overall in terms of girls 3A?
Yeah, 3A. So yeah, last year it was the premonition, Moon and Mars. This year, since the beginning, you know, talking to everybody and, you know, starting back at the Mo Classic, you know, we're fortunate that we have TJ, we have Latrobe, we have Franklin Regional there. And, you know, you talk to everybody in that group, Coach Jamie, Coach Sean, and Coach Scott, they all had the same feeling too. This year's a lot more wide open than any years it has been in the past. But, you know, you say that, and then you look at the seedings. Number 1, Mars, number 3, Moon. And you always talk about they do it every year and the culture that their whole program brings top to bottom. Well, you can't forget Plum, because they've been there all those years. They have unfortunately just ran into Moon last year, and they want the 3-way battle, you know, year after year after year with Mars, just coming up short. So really, you know, as everybody talks about Moon and Mars, there's Plum there. They're always pushing. But at the same time, now you have a TJ that's coming in, and they're playing really well right now. And, you know, and also you can take from our section EF that, you know, that we were part of, how well they're playing and the ball's moving. And Latrobe, you know, the Riley sisters, Ava Yurko, you know, I'm sure, God, who am I leaving? I had 5 of them on our watch list.
Right.
You know, Ava Lorenzi and Maddie Petruzzi. You know, I understand that Robin maybe had a little bit of an ankle knock, but to say that she was on limited times coming into the Mo Classic, and she just came out, played 70 minutes and scored 4 goals. So much for limitations. They're going to be dangerous again, you know, and they fell to Mars last year in the WPIAL. So there's going to be these opportunities, you know. Montour, beginning of the year, a buddy of mine told me, keep an eye out for Montour. They're going to make noise. They're going to be competitive. And we all know, you get into the playoffs, the one thing can happen, you know, let's hopefully not say an injury, but weather comes, different things happen. Oakland Catholic going into Thomas Jefferson. Oakland Catholic has been the spoiler in the first round on many occasions. They're comfortable doing it. Their seed don't bother them. And so, but I do think the seedings really pair up for some great second round matchups. If, you know, things are chalk, a TJ versus South Fayette, that could see a wonderful matchup of speed and ball play versus a very good young goalkeeper for South Fayette. Trying to catch Caitlin Thompson. So, you know, that you can see that, and then you can see a Moon and Latrobe matchup, which, I mean, that's a heck of a matchup just for the second round. So 3A wide open, tons of talent. Didn't even talk about Franklin Regional really yet, about the opportunities they have. You know, Franklin Regional, you have Arissa Lamana, a goalkeeper who's going to Coastal Carolina. You got goal scorers in Alyssa Velasquez and Abby Patterline. It's going to be dynamic to see what happens and maybe what domino falls first in all of this.
Yeah, it's the other one I was looking at was on the left side of the bracket. you got Hampton and Elizabeth forward in round one. If Hampton handles business, then maybe Mars Hampton, another very interesting sort of neighborhood rivalry in round two. And the scrappy Talbots, maybe they don't advance, but maybe they give Mars a game. Who knows?
Yeah, and I think that Hampton Elizabeth and the Montour Franklin Regional, those are by far, to me, the two best games coming out of the opening round. Not just because their seeds are close. I think they're great matchups. I think each team has something a little bit different they show and can provide in a game. So you're going to see, that opportunity for a goalkeeper to stand on their head, or someone's just going to be maybe the overtime hero.
Is there any reason to believe that it won't be Moon and Mars again this year? Do you see any chinks in the armor as far as those teams are concerned, aside from, like you said, the general emergence of other teams in the classification?
Well, to see a chink in the armor would be kind of hard. I mean, so take Mars. I mean, you sit there and look at it, and okay, the first year they win the WPIAL and States. Okay, well, Taylor Hamlet's gone. Well, now all the Caulfields are gone now, and all the Dunaways are gone now, but they're still right there. They have that culture. So, and for Moon, they only won between the last two of that, between Moon and Mars, 6 of the last 7 titles and 3A have come from them. 2021, they both won because it was 4A Moon and 3A Mars. I mean, it's
and
so.
The one year, Ed, the one year that Mars lost to Oakland Catholic, I mean, that was a pretty big upset. I mean, it was a really good Oakland Catholic team, but
Correct.
that was a pretty big upset.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's so hard to say those two teams aren't going to be there, at least one of them even. But each coach will probably tell you they have work to do, but also have the expectations of being there as well. I mean, well, Bill only has 500 wins under his belt. I mean, nothing to sneeze at. But Plum's going to definitely, I think, push someone to their limit, if not get there. And to see Latrobe, I mean, Latrobe can easily get there as well. I don't see why they couldn't get there based on the firepower that they have and what we've seen in person from them. It's high level.
Of all the girls' brackets, does it strike you that 3A is the one that has the most potential for chaos just up and down the thing?
Absolutely. There's, you look at, like we were talking, an 8-9 matchup of Hampton versus EF, and that going to take on Mars, and it could be a Hampton Mars matchup where teams know each other very well. And then you have Montour and Franklin, and Montour can go into Plum. Franklin's familiar with Plum. It's going to be unique. Penn Trafford, who knows? That people sometimes just say it's a 12-5 matchup. Penn Trafford has shown last year going toe-to-toe with Mars in the opening round. I mean, a lot of those girls are back. So to take Mars, to the limit in the opening round, boy, they're going to be hungry to get in there and play and prove themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. And John is I have to defer to John, the group historian, for this, but I always talk about how what a dubious achievement it is for a school's boys and girls team to win WPIAL championships in the same year. Of course, Moon did it last year. Yeah. Moon could conceivably do that again this year with boys and girls in 3A. I wonder, maybe John knows this off the top of my head because I do not, but I wonder how many schools have done it back to back, boys and girls, 2 years in a row in the same year, because that certainly seems like it's within Moon's reach this year.
Yeah, I'd have to check. I have to check, but Greensburg Central Catholic, did that 2 years in a row, but I think that at one point their girls program didn't win when the boys won back to back when they had the Nate Ward team. I can't remember if the girls won back to back those 2 years too, but that might be the most recent one that I can think of. But yeah, otherwise it's very, very hard to find. I mean, there's been some runs with Upper St. Clair and Peters Township where both boys and girls, yeah, have been outstanding. But I don't know about back to back, both of them. That would be really something.
Yeah.
All right. So Ed, before we let you go, just any thoughts in terms of, we were looking around. I was a little surprised by the 1A seeding, Riverview getting the 1 seed over Freedom. But I mean, Lola Abraham is probably a difference maker that definitely can, especially at the 1A level, but there's a lot of good teams at the 1A level. And then of course, just kind of getting your thoughts on the 2A, the Avonworth North Catholic is sort of kind of doing the Mars Moon thing, or actually both in the same section, getting the top seeds this time around. See, the committee may have learned, because what they did in the past was they put whichever one won that section won, and then they put the other one 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And it was Avonworth the last couple of years got like a 5 or 6, and they ended up winning the whole thing because they got healthy during the playoffs. Interesting that the committee went in this direction this year.
Yeah. So you look at that, and it's nice to see them on opposite sides, just for the fact that, Avonworth is a very good team. They're, they know the path to get there. They've done it. They're going to be, Fiona Mann's going to be doing her thing. And then you add in North Catholic. North Catholic's chomping at the bit to be that team, to win a WPIAL. You see DJ, and then now you got Mila helping him. So the whole Sharpless clan is there pretty much. So they want to win, and they're gonna push. But at the same time, again, you have your shady side sitting there. That might be, one of the teams they have to get through. Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant puts up big numbers, but sometimes they're forgotten just because they're out where they are. That's a path they might have to go through as well. And then, Freeport's going to be a challenge, I think, over on the other side. South Park, TJ O'Brien, I know he likes his team a lot. Where and how they play and where their strengths lie could just be a complete matchup. So, you have your 1 and 2, I think, by far everybody would pick as the favorites, but there is that next group sitting below them that they're going to be really probably a problem for each team's definitely going to have, I think, a close call. If they would hold chalk and go Avonworth and North Catholic, they're definitely going to have a close call along the way.
I had Mount Pleasant as my top seed. I really did, because I thought they went out of section. They beat everybody they needed to. They beat 3A, 2A teams. They beat them 4A teams, and they were in the final last year. They gave Avonworth everything they could. Excellent coaching. Rich is a great coach. And I was surprised, but I think they get the little bit of a snub. That section always seems to get a little bit of a snub.
And sometimes that's the case. I know with our section in 3A, that sometimes is a little bit challenging when I think it goes to seeding for like a TJ and EF, because, well, for the longest time, we didn't even have a win out of the first round out of that section. And then finally Bell Vernon broke through. But so that can hamper your seeding sometimes. But once you're in there, coaches like Rich, they're not going to worry about what that number seed was. They're going to go out and prepare for every game. So it's a different path, maybe one than everybody expected, but they'll go at it. With 1A, Lola Abraham could definitely be a difference maker. But is she going to be able to do it for 4 games during the title? That's the challenge. Especially, you're being looked at and marked so differently day by day in your section matchups, but now you get into playoffs, and now you're looking at new ways, maybe how she's marked and how they're played. who they're going up against. So, you see them maybe running into Winchester Thurston or, GCC. Not really familiar with Winchester Thurston on the girls' side that much right now. We know GCC's had a number of problems this year with players. So it's going to be a challenge for them to compete. So it's going to be, to be honest with you, I think she runs through that side as well as the team. Sean's a good coach. I think they get there, but she's definitely going to be challenged. It's just she's that level of player where people are going to go out of their way to try and take her out of the game, which obviously is something she's not used to dealing with. She's has dealt with it. Seen people to try and do that with Bailey Cartwright over the years, in the 1A level. And Mary got us to 1 year. She was able to figure it out. But that's going to be a challenge for her and Sean to adjust to. And then Freedom just keeps another team. When we're talking about 3A and Moon and Mars and Plum, even just keep clicking along. Here's Freedom. Coach Williams, he's up there doing his thing. Collins constantly seems to have that one or two girls that can just fill the back of the net and play sound defense behind them. So here they are again. So as far as the other side, Charleroi at a 3 seed. They knowing some of the Charleroi parents and getting to know a couple of those players, they have to be ecstatic with being a 3 seed. It's been a while they've been that high of a seed, probably not since really 2015 when they played us in the GCC in the finals under Coach Rue there. So this is going to be exciting for them, and I'm sure they'll be focused. You got Boots Donger, who's going to hit the 100 career goal mark. You have Bella Corrado, who's an outstanding player. They picked up some young players to help support that cast there. That's, because Boots and Bella have been there, this is their senior year, but they finally got the supporting staff to go around them. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in the 1A side. And, do they get a matchup against Freedom? A matchup is against Springdale. I think that's a great second round matchup, Charleroi and Springdale. Springdale is, one of those teams I think it can make some noise. This other side of the bracket is, I think, more where you're going to get your surprises in 1A. Where, the other side, what do you do with Little Abraham? So it's going to be fun to watch. And we'll just, for me, I'm just looking forward to it. I think they spaced the games out pretty well that I can move around and watch a lot of these games. So.
Well, and let's wrap it up with 4A. I just, again, we talked about kind of chalk in terms of seeding. At least I feel like they went opposite of the boys in 4A and went pretty much every other team from each section all the way through. But North Allegheny, I mean, they up until 2018, it was hard to believe they had never won a WPIAL. Now they're on the verge potentially of a fourth WPIAL title in 5 years if everything goes according to form.
Right. Yeah. And so you look at that program and what it's done and how it's just continued to fill in. Hey, Shapansky moves on, Lucia Wells moves on, but they just keep moving along. It doesn't, the play doesn't change. The style play really doesn't change. It's a fast-paced play. Ball does a lot of the work. It's amazing what they've put together over these last 4 years, now 5. Upper St. Clair definitely would like to have something to say about it. They are a very strong team, and it's not going to be one of those, we got all these seniors together and that. they're lock and loaded for a couple years, really. Sierra Dupree, the Mascaro girls. I know I'm missing girls off the top of my head there, but they're a very good, solid team. They're, coach probably told me they're right up there with North Allegheny. And then you throw Peters Township in, always Pat's always putting a good product on the field, and obviously well coached, and they're going to compete. Seneca Valley at the 4, again, another team that's been there, another team who is familiar with being the upset-minded team. So it's going to be, even though it's only 8 teams going into that, that's going to be a very, very fun playoff bracket, top to bottom. I think you'll see a surprise. I think last year there was several overtime games inside of the the 4A bracket. So I almost expect to see that again this year.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but Popchock, one of the lower seeds, a 7 or an 8 seed. I don't think they scored a goal, but they made it all the way to the semifinals and played every match, went to PKs.
Yeah.
They almost had the distinction of making it to the final without scoring a goal in run of play. I just thought you just never know, especially at that level. There's more. It seems like there's more draws in the 4A level than every other level. Because they're just not going to give an inch, and 11 players deep, an organization, the coaching, everything is just it's very high quality, and so a lot does not separate, or less separates maybe the first to the 8th seed.
Yeah, then since they made the 4A classification, and you have your 2 really sections only, the familiarity with each other, even cross games and everything. It became, that much more familiar with how those teams are playing. So when you get to this time of year, yeah, everybody pretty much knows everybody. And if they don't, they sure in heck got film on them. So
true. And last year we saw that evident right into the final, where North Allegheny and Peters went to penalty kicks. And I don't expect anything less this year. I think it'll be probably on that level.
Yep, I agree.
All right, Ed. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's always great to get your insights, and you know so much about the game in terms of our area and on the girls' side. So we'll be looking forward to seeing connecting with you probably in the coming weeks. I know we always like to chat and connect regarding the playoffs.
Yep, I appreciate it very much. Look forward to the start of it.
Thanks, Ed.
All right, thanks, Ed.
All right,
Have a
guys.
good one.
Yep.
All right. Bye. All right, that was Ed Rosensteel. Of course, having someone like Ed and kind of in our back pocket to, hey, give us insight in terms of all the classifications. I do appreciate that on the girls' side. So we're ready to go, Matt. I don't know, before we sign off though, is there any matchups on either side, boys or girls, that are coming up Saturday, Monday, Tuesday in those first rounds? You mentioned a few, but maybe one that you haven't mentioned that's really stands out. Like, hey, you know what? This would be a great game. Maybe Pittsburgh Soccer Now, we could head out there. Is there any that jump out to you yet so far?
Well, I'll go bracket by bracket. And before I do, I didn't have time to jump on something that Ed said about Upper St. Clair. That girls team conceded only 3 times the entire season, which blows my freaking mind. I don't care what level you're at, what level your competition is at. That is phenomenal. And we talked about,
especially at that level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And we talked about boys and girls teams that could win concurrently. Upper St. Clair is one of those schools that I think has a shot to do it. Looking bracket by bracket, though, at first round matchups, the ones that jump out at me in boys 4A, Upper St. Clair and Fox Chapel, just because Fox Chapel plays in that proverbial section of death, and Upper St. Clair is my under the radar pick to do very well in boys 4A this year. And moving on to boys class 3A, The one that I'm looking at, and the one that I'm hopefully going to be getting a statement from Chris Knopf about in the foreseeable future, is Mars against Franklin Regional. Franklin Regional is a team that has had championship success in recent years. They've been hit very hard by roster attrition, and they've had a tough time in that section, I think, kind of recovering from that. But they're still a very well-peopled.
That's a rematch of the 2020, I think, was the final, maybe even one other year, but that was a 2020 final. That was a classic. I think it went to overtime.
Yeah, yeah. So that should be a very entertaining one. And as I mentioned before, South Fayette and Greater Latrobe, really a shame that one team has to lose that game, because I think, depending upon how the seeding shook out, both of those teams could have conceivably gone on long runs in 3A. Looking at boys 2A, Shady Side and Beaver, I think, could be a really interesting first round contest, just because Beaver was the under the radar team last year, and they have to go and prove themselves again all over again this year against a Shady Side Academy team that is themselves an under the radar team because of what Deer Lakes did in winning their section this year. And the potential exists, we talked about earlier, for that Deer Lakes Shady Side second round contest. So I think I'm going to be keeping an eye on that one in boys 2A. Looking at boys,
but it always
1A,
seems like whenever we anticipate a matchup, it doesn't happen.
That's playoff soccer.
That's the
No, you're
beauty of it,
absolutely
yeah.
right. That's the way
That's
it goes
right.
sometimes. On the left side of the boys 1A bracket, I am looking at Winchester Thurston and Eden Christian, because in the past, Eden Christian has given Winchester Thurston a game in the playoffs, but haven't been able to conquer that team as of yet. And if Winchester
That's a really
Thurston
good
wins,
8-9. Yeah, that's one of those 8-9 ones that, those teams, some other years might be close a top 2 or 3 seed. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if Winchester Thurston wins, of course, the potential exists for the rematch with Charleroi. Moving on to girls 4A, the one that jumps out at me again is Upper St. Clair Butler, simply because I think this Upper St. Clair team is a team that I would like to see play in person at least once before the 2023 calendar year is over, because of that stifling defense, because of that consistent offense. They look like a team that is just a pleasure to watch, and they could be a team that surprises North Allegheny or Seneca Valley, for that matter, if they're good enough to make it to Highmark Stadium. In girls 3A, looking at the bracket and looking at some of the things that Ed had talked about, Montour Franklin Regional kind of jumps out at me, because Montour was supposed to be the dark horse team this year. Emphasis on supposed to be, and Franklin Regional, they're a team that has a lot of playoff experience, and selfishly, I think a Plum Franklin Regional second round affair could be fun to watch, just because of the neighborhood rivalry and the implications there. Two very interesting Westmoreland or Eastern area teams, if you will, potentially going at it there. Moving on in girls 2A, looking at enticing first round matchups. I mean, here you go. We don't have to wait for Deer Lakes and Shady Side Academy, because they're facing each other in round 1 in the girls bracket. There's your Shady Side Deer Lakes contest. I think that's a slam dunk answer to that question. And
but
finally,
of course, different sections on the girls' side.
Yes, absolutely. Very valid point. And last but not least, girls 1A. And Paige sort of talked about it, just a very loaded bracket this year. I am interested in seeing what OLSH does, because they have those freshmen who are now seniors that have that experience making it to a championship game in 2020, even though they came up short. They have a first round matchup that seems on paper favorable. Getting past Freedom will be no mean feat, simply because Freedom is Freedom. They're there year after year after year in girls 1A. But if you're looking for a team that could turn heads in girls 1A, maybe it is OLSH. You never know. So I'll be keeping an eye on what they do on Tuesday night.
All right. Well, we will be keeping an eye on what everyone's going to be doing. Just keep up with everything with Pittsburgh Soccer Now. We'll have latest scores updates. We'll look at look at each round, round by round. We'll probably have some more podcasts, Kids on the Pitch podcast. We'll have a lot going on as far as covering the WPIAL soccer playoffs. But of course, all roads lead to Highmark Stadium, and that will be the first week of November. We plan to be there every game, have full coverage, and looking forward to all of that. So, all right, again, Matt, thank you so much for joining me. This was a blast. We give a lot of people a lot of insights heading into playoffs, and I think this is a great way to do that. And again, thanks for your time today, and thanks for all your contributions to Pittsburgh soccer. Now,
always a pleasure, and boy, I feel smarter than I did a couple hours ago. I hope
I
our
do
audience
too.
I hope our audience does as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we got to get these up and running, and we'll be talking to you soon. Thank you, and have a great day.